Good morning. It's Monday morning. It's Memorial Day. It's a day when we stop and think about those who died serving our country. And I thought we'd maybe take a break from the Lord's Prayer just for today. I've been thinking about veterans I've known and the stories they've told. And one fellow one day came in to be liturgist at our church, lay reader, and for the early service. And so he looked at the bulletin and he says, "Oh, is it February the 23rd?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Oh, how about that? In 1945, I crashed a B-24 on this day. Seven of us died and four of us walked away," or something like that. Then he walked in and led the call to worship. And I was sitting over there going, "What?" You know. But the plane had slid off of a runway, a temporary runway on some little island in the Pacific, and crashed into the trees, and several of them were killed. I don't think I have the numbers right, but it was just very matter of fact. But he didn't ever talk about that war much. Another person who never talked much about warfare that he'd seen was my grandfather. And he was actually in World War I, which was a very, very brutal, destructive series of just carnage battles. 1 million people would die on a Tuesday, and for nothing. They wouldn't gain any ground at all. It's a horrible war. My grandfather was assigned to an ambulance corps and went over there in 1918. He finally got to France, and they would go around behind the soldiers, behind the battles, and search the battlefields looking for wounded soldiers that they would take to the hospital units. And then they would collect the dead bodies of Americans and take them to wherever they would go to be identified and processed. So they're out there doing this grisly sort of work one day, and there is a wounded German soldier, the enemy. Now, an enemy soldier wounded on the battlefield, what do? Some people would pull out their sidearm and just put him out of his misery. Other people would say, "Oh, suffer, you German," and walk away. But this guy was laying there dying and asked my grandfather, begged for a drink of water. My grandfather said, "I don't know. I don't think I was supposed to do this, but I didn't figure it would really hurt." And I gave him a drink of water before he died. Well, that's the kind of person my grandfather was, and I think that's the kind of thing that Jesus would call us to do. He talked about giving a cup of cold water to people in his name, and he talked about loving our enemies. And so, yes, today we remember those who sacrificed their lives for our country, but at the same time, we think about what Jesus bid us do, and we wonder, where do those things intersect, and what is it that we're really called to do and be? So as we honor our deceased soldiers, let's not forget that Jesus calls us to something even higher. Tomorrow, I promise, we'll continue with the Lord's Prayer.